Congo himself
Nice.
before he passed away. And
Was he boiled in a kettle?
the visuals of him are at different points in his life.
And we'll never see
And,
him turn that way.
Yeah, and we'll switch this around. But I think it would be more appropriate to have you hear him read his poem. You may not recognize it, but any poet to create something are mystical. They can be mystical, because the first time I read it 60 or 70 years ago, I thought, what a racist this guy is, you know, because of the language he uses, and the fat black bucks in the wine barrel room. I thought, crying out loud, I've got to read this. And but I think that as I've gotten older, I've had a different take on Vachel Lindsay, and I think that he was responding to his attempt to understand their savagery, which their religion, and their perennial optimism, which were three things that he focused on in this poem. And I think he was seeking to understand the Negro race himself, although he was born in Illinois, but I think he spent time in the South because he seemed to be well acquainted with the Negroes. And but that's the only poem that he wrote about the Negro. And then I don't know what point he decided it should be chanted, but I think he had the conviction that poetry should lend itself to chanting and dancing, and should be more than a graphic thing, print on paper, and and with unimaginative reading. So he thought that poetry should lend itself to chanting and to other means of expression to enrich its. I think that I don't know this, but I think that when he was alone and reading poetry, he probably read it aloud.
I don't know.
Yeah, because that was part of the communication of poetry.
A little bit about him, and I found out that he died essentially a broken and disappointed man when he thought of himself as a great friend of black people, and in fact he encouraged a lot of the early black poets who were very important. He was befriended by Harriet Moore, the founder of Poetry Magazine, and who published his stuff, and so he was considered a good poet, but he died penniless and as a suicide.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
And the color and the drama really appealed to me.
Yeah.
The rhythm and it just
He
picture
captured
after
that
picture.
quite effectively.
Yeah.
doesn't he?
You could take the Congo and make it American Indian, Native Americans. You could do the same thing. It's transposable
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah, you could take the Amazon rainforest and do that.
Sure.
So it came to me partly in an email late last night from my eldest niece. So adapted it somewhat and added to it. It's called The News from the Great State of Texas. Marianne Flournoy, roving reporter. The first article, Mr. President goes to Austin in our house. A series of exclamation points. Amy and Ed Cunningham hosted President Obama for breakfast last Thursday in their home in Austin, Texas. Amy just happens to be my niece. Eagerly awaiting the president in their kitchen, her husband Ed, 6'7", a former NFL player, and Amy, 6'4", had to bend over and look up out of their kitchen window to see the president walk up the back steps. In their brief kitchen meeting before joining the other guests, the president remarked on his meeting the day before with Governor Perry, quote, "You know, that guy is dumb as a rock." The house was full of Secret Service dogs whose handlers gave out doggy business cards to all children present. When it's hot, the canines wear tiny dog shoes and sunglasses, but you cannot pet them even if you and they want to. Ed also quickly learned that the Secret Service did not have a sense of humor when he suggested they leave their assault rifles behind as a thank you gift for hosting the event. The 28 guests, major Democratic donors, eagerly greeted the president when he entered the living room where breakfast was being served. The president came into our house where we live, direct quote from Amy. He even remembered that Amy and Ed had met at a fundraiser several years before when they were both on his finance committee and took credit for their subsequent marriage. Amy got to introduce the president but only said 6 words. She was afraid to say more for fear the other guests would shoot her for taking up the president's time. This is Texas, you know. Halfway through the president's remarks, Amy was seized by a coughing fit. She reached behind the president on the sofa to get her husband's glass of water because she had already finished hers. At that point, President Obama showed his true character by taking the presidential seal off his water glass and handing it to Amy. The president's last question came from an 80-year-old female contributor who asked him why he didn't counter Sue Boehner. For what? Incompetence? The questioner sweetly replied, "I could give you a list." Then the president told a little more about his meeting with Perry, who had not read the president's appropriation bill for the border, but wanted the president to act without Congress in sending National Guard troops as a way to, quote, build trust with Congress. When Obama pointed out that Perry's party was suing him for acting without congressional consent, and that doing so again hardly seemed likely to build trust with Boehner and all, quote, Perry got all confused and quit talking.
You can tell it's humid.
Let's see.
Yeah. It sure has.
Presumption of priority. It's everywhere, this presumption of priority. Mountaintops are blown off to mine the coal. Presumption of priority. Oil wells are drilled anywhere. Oceans, sacred lands, city. Presumption of priority. Gas is pumped from deep beneath our homes, our cities, parks, leaving gaps in the earth to be filled with man-made waste. I ask these questions. Do you know how coal was formed in that mountain? Do you know the source of the oil? How about the gas? Any idea of how or what these useful products once were? Products that allow a few individuals, as companies are known now, to change nations and cultures and forever use up the earth's resources for uneatable dollars. Is your planet only 6,000 years old? Unless you understand some universal truths, we can no longer converse. Our worlds are too far apart.
So true, so true, so true.
The other is number 6. She asked if the road led uphill all the way. The only answer I could give was yes. The part of this is from Rossetti. I've forgotten which poem it was, but in the poem she asked.
Larry Smith, who owns Bottom Dog Press. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him or not. He's a retired professor from Bowling Green who taught writing. And the gentleman that usually does this workshop with him is named Lou Suarez, and I love his poems. I think he's kind of like an Ohio Billy Collins. But anyway, he writes, I just wanted to share this poem with you. It's called The Poet. Some days a poet is like a street drunk, begging for a few good lines and a simple image, perhaps a bowl of oranges or a smell of deep-fried fish in summer, the sound of ice cracking beneath a man's boots. But then the image comes and it is not enough. He wants another and a few more lines about the man he might have been if only the stars had aligned differently, if only his mother had gone to law school or become a cosmetologist. You see them everywhere, their chins propped on their fists, their eyes strained to see, truth slant, as Emily Dixon put it. Which is why most wear glasses, and those who don't suffer withdrawal headaches, like the addicts they would be if not poets, snorting their high-grade lines through a straw purely for the high. Anyway, this is
That's good.
I like the cover.
yeah, I do too. This is information on him. Lou Suarez is an author. Let's see. I'll just kind of glance through this. He received his first series, an award for poetry, in 3 chapbooks: Losses of the Moment, Kent State University Press; The Grape Painter, Forest Heavens Press; and on US 6 Providence Red Mountain Review. He is a professor emeritus at Lorraine Community College, where he lives with his wife in Sheffield Lake, Ohio. And his wife's a yoga teacher, by the way, so we kind of shared that interest. When I was sitting beside my daughter, who just recently made her transition, I was realizing that there was something supporting me. And you can call it holy energy, you can call it a guru, you can call it spirit, source. I choose to call it God. And I wrote about it one day when I was beside her bed, and one of the hospice nurses said, "Oh, I want to draw that poem for you." And I said, "Oh," I was sort of taken back, you know. So this nurse's name is Pepper Black, and she drew this poem.
Oh my.
And I'll pass it around, but
Wonderful.
I wrote,
Tango.
yeah, I wrote this on June 13th, and my daughter made her transition on the 22nd. So this is my poem. I walk God's steps and know these steps support me, surround me, uplift me, beyond all expectations like never before. I walk God's steps. I walk God's steps in grasses, on land, on streets, in my abode. These God steps sustain me while all is changing. I walk God's steps. I walk God's steps with profound gratitude that reaches into the mystery. I walk God's steps with spirit, in prayer, and with you, as you walk your God steps with spirit, in deeper peace, deeper knowing, as you become part of this holy mystery. We walk God's steps.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, that's
I
a
thought
good-
maybe you'd like to see the artwork.
Yes.
What what a wonderful gift to have.
Yeah, I was
Gee,
pretty
it's
shocked.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thought you'd like to hear that. Yes. Thank you.
It's a great line. I walk God's steps. It's
Yeah.
very powerful.
Mhm.
But as you repeat it, it
Yeah.
becomes more resonant.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Anybody wants to look at this, I'll hold on to
Mm.
Where is it? I heard him read somewhere all this poetry flitting about that I do.
It's good that way.
I figured the picture of the art would be better than a copy.
But I actually walked out of the house and got the copies.
How are your grandchildren?
Pretty good. My granddaughter's living with me now. So,
How old is she?
19. And my grandson is 15. And he's living with his dad in Pickerington. And I think, things are kind of falling into place, I guess is what I would say. So.
That is beautiful.
Now, do you want someone to point that at you so you can be recorded?
Pardon?
Do you want someone to point that at you so they
He's
can?
going to.
He's going to do that.
You want me to hold this up and you take a picture?
Okay, that'd be good.
How about the light or the reflection?
Everybody have a look around?
Well, they can't read it, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah.
A look around. What cheek to try and write poetry,
She's reading her poem.
as though a conduit from the waters of Lethe, robust Homo sapien stirring the cauldron of the ages, voicing edicts on everything from God to death, pompous sphinx. But you cry out, if I don't do it, who will? The sea will, if you'll but listen. And the sighing music of wind jostled leaves at midnight. If you don't stumble over the carcasses of your own dream denizens. But what of the birds singing on its stanchion, tethered but free? Ah and oh, and are not we?
That,
Thought-provoking.
thought-provoking, but also good language and images and tricky language, I think. Good. So I think this is very good.
So you're on.
Oh, life among the rich is exalting. Life among the wealthy is a kick. If I'm feeling blue, need a little loving too, I'll just go buy a silver walking stick. A tiny cottage on the French Riviera. There's not a lot that I require. A limousine or two, servants up the Wakazoo. I made up a word.
Wazoo.
I know. It's Wakazoo. And nightly treats of rum and caviar.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Oh dear.
That smacks of Cole Porter.
Cole Porter?
Huh? Yeah, that's the first thing I said. I looked at that and I said, well, something has touched my soul. I love this thing.
We can all sing it.
I absolutely love this thing. What was your question?
I said Noel Coward.
Yeah. I think
One of them is basically on exercise. Some of you also, as I do, have the book called The Ode Less Traveled. Do you remember that book? It's about poetry. And it suggests that every now and then you should try to exercise yourself and write in strict form. So I occasionally I do little ditties just to practice doing iambic tetrameter, iambic pentameter, and to do some rhyme schemes. So that's the first one is a silly little exercise. So it's called A Summer Wish in Iambic Tetrameter. And the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, A, B. It's very, very simple. So I hope that I shall never be too numb to cheer each day anew, too blind to revel in a tree, too slaked to taste the damp dawn dew, too deaf to hear a buzzing bee, too dumb to say that I love you. Well, I wrote that, I showed it to my daughter and her daughter, and my daughter said, "Dad, some of your poems are pretty good, but that's not one of them." And my granddaughter, thinking to cheer me up, little Chloe, as you've all met, is 11 years old, she said, "Grandpa, I think it's pretty good. It could be on a Hallmark greeting card."
There you go.
So I realized that I was not going to achieve fame and fortune with that poem. So on a more serious note,
Before we leave this, you ought to have commas instead of periods after the second and third line, don't you think? I mean, you have that long series of to this, to that, to do.
Yeah, probably could do commas. Yeah, I had it both
It's all
ways.
one sentence.
I had it originally in couplets. I'd hope that I shall never be too blind to revel in a tree, and I did those couplets. And then I said, oh, it'll be more fun to A-B, the rhyme scheme. So, well, another one came. This poem was inspired by a conversation with my sisters, and I have two older sisters who are identical twins. And we were talking about growing up, and I grew up during the World War II period, and during that time, the war was on, and in my neighborhood, often there would be shutters pulled on a house, and kind of quiet, and a gold star would appear in one of the windows. And I remember walking with my mother and my sisters past one of those windows, and I was frolicking and making lots of noise, and my mother said, "Shush," and my sister said, "Act like you're in church." And that stuck with me, and then I realized that Gold Star mothers were families that lost their sons in war. They had gotten a notice that they're Aries, but I needed to take out, "I am Aries, insatiable god of war. Send me your loved ones to die. Enlist able-bodied young men first, drilled with ingenious skill to kill. When these perish, I resort to using both older men and younger boys. Females, too, now join the carnage. Let all in my thrall share the slaughter. When this supply is exhausted, foes can hurl their newborn babies at each other. See those pregnant women queuing up? They too want to be Gold Star mothers, proud to have given their offspring to me."
Wow. That's heavy.
Pretty dark, wasn't it?
It's most regrettable that we have in our culture.
Now, we're gonna start with colic.
Gee, usually I wound up.
Hush, my little darling, hush, now don't you cry. Hush, my pretty baby, I'm so weary I could die. Hush, beloved baby, please just go to sleep. Hush, please, mama's angel, I'm so tired I could weep. I love you dearly, small one, but if I get a bit of rest sometime tomorrow morning, you'll find I love you best.
And if you don't shut up, we're not going to get any sleep around here.
What prompted you to write this? This is
None of your
fascinating.
children have colic?
I don't have children.
Oh, okay, never, yeah. But did you ever handle a baby with
Oh, yeah,
colic?
I've had, lots of nieces and nephews that got intimately involved in their babyhood.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just,
like that. I'm going to share that with my daughter.
I'm
The
very-
other day, the other day I was at the Historical Society on Court Street, and I picked up a copy of The Asylum on the Hill. Some of you may have read that. But anyway, a great number of people that wound up being up on the hill were postpartum mothers
Uh-huh.
who were suffering some sort of neuroticism or whatever. And you read this, it was took me right back to that.
Well, my great nephew has just, he and his wife have just had a baby. He's less than a month old. So I'm gonna send it to them.
All right, that's okay.
Prepare yourself.
Beware.
All right, coming soon.
Lullaby, and this doesn't have a melody, but if someone musical wants to put it to a melody, it's fine with me. I'm gonna give it to some of my musical kinfolk. What is behind your eyelids? Can you tell me what pictures are there? You must close your eyes just to see them, but try very hard not to stare. Keep your eyes closed while you listen, or you won't see the pictures at all. They're only behind your eyelids. You won't see them up on the wall. Are there kittens asleep in a basket, soft, cuddly bundles of fur? Though they are only behind your eyelids, listen closely, you might hear them purr. The yellow bird's getting sleepy, she's just too tired to sing. She's settling down in her nest with her head tucked under her wing. You're as sleepy as that little bird is. You're comfortable there in your bed. You've grown very tired from watching those pictures inside of your head. Go to sleep, my little darling. Listen to your mama's song. I'll be here to keep you safe, dear, all of this night long.
Beautiful. Oh, nice.
But that's from singing kids to sleep, where you routinely brush your hand down over their face to keep their eyes closed, because they'll go to sleep faster with their eyes closed than they will with them open.
That's nice. That's very pleasant.
I don't know if you know the music to George Gershwin's Lullaby, which is one of my favorite pieces of music. You should word this in listening to that.
Well-
The rhythm would be just perfect.
This new father he's very musical, and and then some of you know my niece Tracy. She too is musical, and then there's Andrew, and then there's bunches of them. So somebody can put it to music if somebody wants to.
Why not?
Did anybody here see the King and I production?
I did.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh, I thought it was wonderful.
It was.
Speaking of music.
Quite a cast.
Yeah,
They did a
huge
wonderful
cast. Right.
The only problem I had with that, and it wasn't this production, that I have with the play, is that woman would not have spoken to Queen Victoria the way she spoke to the King of Siam. You know, insisting, you promised me a house, you must give me a house. The Brits just didn't approach their royalty that way. And it seems racist for her to do it with this Siamese
Oh.
king.
Well, maybe Queen Victoria would have kept her promise in the first
That's
place.
possible. But if she didn't, this woman would not have confronted, and that's sort of bothered me. But I did enjoy the play. And I've seen it twice this year. I can't forget where I saw the other time.
Well, isn't the whole thing how the king is wrong? You know, and
And how the
the
woman-
resolution is that the king changes.
Uses
He
dies.
dies.
That's a pretty,
That's a
it's a
change.
radical change.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a fine production.
Oh, yeah,
I
it
thought,
truly
for that
was. And
little
I
stage.
thought Joe Balding did a very good job.
Yeah, you do.
But where did I see it the other time?
We saw the
I guess
last.
Ruth, are you?
it was last year in, Worcester.
No, I haven't.
Oh.
I'm up now, right? Okay.
Now you are.
Okay.
You're on.
I came prepared to respond to Langston Hughes.
Oh, okay.
And so I have a few verses here from one of, I think, the best American poets in the terms of maybe musical, listenable, and so forth, and that's Langston Hughes. and who is a great talent, who is not a whole lot recognized anymore. I guess everybody recognizes him as a great talent, but when he was 18 years old, he had just graduated high school in Central High in Cleveland and was going to visit a relative into the West. And he wrote this poem at age 18, I've known rivers ancient as the world and colder than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lured me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. 18 years old.
He sure did.
He was riding the bus to across the Mississippi, and but anyway, then a few years later, 5 years later, Hughes was bussing tables in a Washington, D.C. hotel, and he slipped a few poems to the famous poet Vachel Lindsay, who was visiting the hotel. The next day, newspapers announced Lindsay's discovery of a new poet. The Weary Blues was one of these poems, and it became the title poem of Hughes' first book the following year. And I don't know if I should take the time to read it. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
In the heels of Vachel Lindsay.
Look up that.
This is, yeah. Drowning a drowsy, syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon, I heard a Negro play. Down on Lenox Avenue the other night, by the pale, dull pallor of an old gas light, he did a lazy sway. He did a lazy sway to the tune of those weary blues. With his ebony hands on each ivory key, he made that poor piano moan with melody. Oh, blues. Swaying to and fro on his rickety stool, he played that sad, raggy tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues, coming from a black man's soul. Oh, blues. In a deep song voice with a melancholy tone, I heard that Negro sing, that old piano moan. Ain't got nobody in all this world, ain't got nobody but myself. I's gwine to quit my frowning and put my troubles on the shelf. Thump, thump, thump went his foot on the floor. He played a few chords, then he sang some more. I got the weary blues and I can't be satisfied. Got the weary blues and can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more and I wish that I had died. And far into the night he crooned that tune. The stars went out and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock or a man that's dead. That's pretty good performance poetry, isn't it?
That's good poet. Now, he was the father or the godfather, at least, of the Harlem Renaissance. Was he one of the first black poets
yeah.
to make a
Wasn't he
name?
mixed race?
Is he what?
I think he was mixed race.
Yeah, I think he was.
Because I think he wrote a
considered
poem
himself
about
black.
being that way, like he
Well,
didn't know.
Well, you know,
Really?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I've got a,
one drop of black blood in your black.
I have some of his books, and I've got one that I bought for my grandchildren when they were younger, because my grandchildren are mixed race, and it's the kids version with all the beautiful colors. I'll bring it in next time so you guys can see it.
Of course, he wrote the Dream, right?
I like the stuff.
Like a Raisin in the Sun.
Mhm.
I don't know. I thought I had it somewhere.
That was great the way you read that.
Yeah, you read it very well. But that probably goes far to explain what was so hurtful to the Congo poet, because he really liked black people.
Yeah.
He wanted to, he thought he was championing black culture and
Right.
promoting it and had great affection for it and so when he was blasted by the NAACP and Du Bois and all some of the folks in the Black Renaissance, Harlem Renaissance, he was deeply hurt. And basically saying, I'm no racist. In fact, I've spent my whole life trying to promote black people.
But the story also shows, you know, that he had that reputation. He was able to go to the newspaper, and the newspaper said, "Look at here, this is
Yeah, it's good stuff, yeah.
Lindsay has introduced a new poet." So,
Yeah.
you know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Would you like to
We have an
read?
authentic poem. but-
Do you not want to read it?
I'll read it. Of course I read it.
It's interesting to
Need
think
more?
about the blues, isn't it? We have those songs running in our head, the St. Louis blues,
Thank you.
the Weary blues, or this blues,
Got up
that
this morning
blues.
and the blues was on my
Yeah.
face, and I looked in the mirror
Yeah.
and said, "Get off my face," or something like that. Get off my face.
Okay, so everybody's looking at Midnight Bobcat. Somebody has a copy in which it says "We drove,"
I do.
and I prefer that to driving.
Oh.
So I'll read it. We drove one humid summer night on the dark, narrow road through the mangrove thickets bordering the road to the Florida Keys. Car windows rolled down in the time before AC. It was easy, mysterious in the midnight dark, romantic with one's humid skin anticipating change and wonder, a promise of paradise. The headlights illuminated the road with a yellow glow. There was a center line to follow. The edges were not distinct, and they could be soft and marshy, perilous in the blackness of midnight. Suddenly, unbelievably, there was crouched at the midline of the road a bobcat, or could it have been a panther? We were instantly on him. Rather than scooting, he sprang up for the open car window and for an elbow leaning out. Jerking my elbow in, I swerved to the side ever so little and mashed on the gas. I did not have a panther clinging to my arm or writhing in my lap. He bounced off the car door and we sped on. At 50 miles per hour, he and the incident were gone, vanished in the blackness to the rear after a quick, brilliant moment. That cat had looked angry. The headlight showed his teeth and a crazed determination in those reflective eyes. He attacked the car as prey, that 1949 dark green Ford.
That really happened to
It
you?
really happened. It really happened.
Are you sure he wasn't after the Ford? He was after you?
After your
I
elbow.
don't know what he was after, but it was,
That's scary.
yeah, we were driving. I guess that was off Central.
No, off Sanka,
We were going to go and catch the airplane in Key West. And the lights pick up this cat sitting in the middle of the road. Cats are not supposed to sit in the middle of the road, so stay out of the way, right? And the closer I get, it's traveling at more or less highway speed, he doesn't move. He doesn't move, and he doesn't move. And he stays there until, oh my God.
And then he does move.
It's a very narrow road, very narrow road. And we were on our way to Key West with a friend, and we were going to fly to Havana from Key West. And I have to tell you, it cost $10 to fly from Key West to Havana. at that
Round trip.
time.
All right.
$10.
$10 around the trip.
Yes.
I had a 1949
On an airplane with
Ford, and
wings.
No, I didn't have any trouble
No
with
panthers,
bobcats.
no panthers or
Everything
bobcats.
else.
I still don't know whether it would have been a panther or bobcat. It was either a
It
big
was pretty big.
bobcat.
It was
What color
pretty
is
big.
it?
It was
Cat color.
mysterious night color.
All cats are black at night.
It was,
And we had a cat fight outside our bedroom window last night.
brownish.
So just one question, when your car came upon the cat jumped on the hood?
No, the cat jumped up at the window.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was the days before AC, and no matter how, especially when it's really warm, you have
A
the windows
49
open.
Ford.
And you always drive with your elbow out the window, you know,
Not anymore, but.
Oh, yeah.
He had sort of a glancing
Smoking a
blow.
cigarette.
Yeah. With your 1949 dark green.
King of the road.
Did you get water in the ashtrays in the back when it rained?
You're-
Ours did.
In my 1934 Plymouth, I always provided an umbrella in the back seat because the composition roof leaked.
I see.
And so when it was raining, backseat riders had to sit under the umbrella. That poem, as the other one on the other side of the sheet, came to me like that as I was reading some, what's her name? Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver.
Do you want me to get it?
And, no, Mary Oliver, I don't know how familiar you all were. She does all these nature encounter kinds of things, and so those things just came to my mind, and you know, what would it take to make that into a Mary Oliver poem? Because some of her poems are really, really dramatic.
Yeah, it reminded me of when I was young in high school, we took a trip up to Canada to fish. And this was before the deer population was heavy here. We didn't see deer like we see them now.
Right.
And we got up into Michigan, up into the UP, and that was the big thing. We're gonna see a deer, we're gonna see a deer. And it reminded me of, you know, a long time ago, and now how you don't have to go looking for deer.
Yeah, well, we do say we're gonna see a deer, but it's a warning.
Yeah, but I just, was remembering that when you read this.
Yeah. It could have been a panther, because in those days, the population of panthers in South Florida was pretty considerable. And of course, it's become the endangered species of all.
What color was it?
You know, the tawny color.
Yeah.
I couldn't see bobcat patterning or anything. It was, not that well lit. And of course, we were moving and came upon it fast, but unmistakably, it was a cat just sitting there on the center line of the road.
It's nice to have it a mystery.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's an eternal mystery. So on the other, in the same mode, I wrote down White Wing Sweep, which is a pun on the city of Detroit, where in the city of Detroit, they used to have people who wore white uniforms, and they had like a 55-gallon barrel on wheels and a broom, and they would go along and sweep the streets in the downtown area. And those guys were called White Wings for some reason.
Well, they had the white overalls, and they had the cross on the back of the straps.
All right.
Cross.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So anyway, that's got nothing to do with anything except the names, the words. Spanning the breath of the withered.
No more drinks for him in the morning.
God, no.
We do have white wings in the withered.
I don't know if it was the morning or last night, just hadn't gotten over with.
Spanning the breath of the river, a phalanx of white wings heading at me. From shore to shore, the now flapping, then soaring wings swept only a foot or two above the river, traveling in anticipation of dusk, the time to head for the egret's rookery after a day's prowling for sustenance. This moving white line of wings lifted at the point where my canoe floated with me, astonished and ducking.
That is a noisy.
little implement you've got there today.
Oh, no, it's noisy, isn't it?
I like that one.
Yeah.
I love the word sustenance. I don't know why. That could
Me, heading at me, or
At me,
at me,
At
or
me.
me,
yeah.
heading at me. Yeah,
From
I-
being on the river in the canoe. It's
Yeah, I know,
in the sense of an attack.
Yeah, 'cause
To-
that's more direct than toward me, it's just in my general
Right.
direction. But at me feels like it's aimed.
yeah,
Right at
that, yeah.
And that's what you
yeah.
feel like, yeah.
I-
Ready for Ruthie?
Yeah. This is it. I put it on 3 pages.
A 3-page poem, so take one of each.
Your day to suffer.
My computer
Collated.
Wow.
functioned. Yeah, so you take this top one and pass it. Collated but not
Okay,
stapled.
oh boy.
I have 2 of the same page.
Um,
I did it wrong.
I did it too. Think just that one.
Collation problem,
Yeah,
I got
I
2 of
put
that
them in
too.
order when I passed them out.
R-A.
Yeah.
Okay, who needs an imagine?
How are
I
these
do.
supposed to go? It starts out with lament, then think just a moment, and then it is important?
Okay, who needs
Yeah.
who needs a title page? We down here have 2 title pages.
Lament, I have,
You don't, and I
There's a-
don't,
there's a first
and I
one.
don't
You
have
an
the second
extra
one. It
paragraph.
must be this one.
There.
Here's a set right here. Here's a full set right here.
Yeah, I think everybody has one
Whole set?
now. You need to number the pages.
It's more poetic if you don't.
A little bit of interpersonal
It
communication
sets
here.
the stage, a little chaos to begin with.
Listen,
H.
I was halfway through this morning and somehow the whole thing vanished off my computer, so I had to retype it.
Oh,
And I was just trying to make it so that the stanzas were broken up, on pages. This is called The Lament. Imagine a kind of paradise where everything that happened was an unplanned blessing. The people we would meet contracted to play their part and teach us something, just as we too taught them in a kind of unpaid fair trade swap that showed us what love was and what it was not, the painful particularly instructive. Could we greet death better, rejoice in the soul's godly reunification, send a mismatched lover off with a thank you letter, celebrate being fired from a job, grateful for the liberation, not wasting a single sob. Every nasty put-down slur and criticism a precious gift of elevation. Well, perhaps after catching our breath and remembering our station. Think just a moment where all the cliched scripts have got us. You hit me, so I'll hit you. The hurt, the loss of words unspoken, yet full-out war accepted, expected, codify in our laws, requiring a protocol that uses weapons, and those, my dear, are jobs, and jobs, my dear, are the economy, and that, my dear, drives stocks, even as the bombs blow up babies in their little night jammies. There will come a time, in truth, it's here now for many, when war will be an embarrassment, a pathetic lack of imagination, a failed exam, no skill at mediation, a kind of Neanderthal response of the enlightened, unenlightened, the socially taught supposed knee-jerk reaction, so predictable, putting war-lust nations on auto like programmed robots who cannot love,
those tender, unsuspecting, sleeping humans dreaming their last dream, breathing their last breath. It is important not to play the victim when we're all full participants in the play. True, if there's violence and it hasn't killed us, we need to get out of the way. Yet, let us see each bomb and all its cruelty exactly as we should. Love gone wrong. Back up, reconsider, hum a different song. Put those flowers down those barrels, wage a parallel barrage of meditation. Send millions upon millions without a single gun, all chanting, believing, creating. Peace, peace, peace.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
Anti-war is in the air.
Yeah, really. And I was so intrigued with Felix's poem, which took the whole idea from a completely different point of view. I'm going to eat you all up, you know. I'm just going to give me those babies, you know. Because I had mentioned, knowing I had mentioned babies in my own. And of course, the news of what has happened in Palestine and Israel has really hurt as much as it did when I heard about Syria and Afghanistan as well too. It just the continuance of it and the stupidness of it just really appalls me.
Yeah, I guess we're all, in this room anyway, we are all mired in the quandary of the present, where everything seems to have gone just wrong.
I like this very much, but on the second stanza on the second page, you say a failed exam, no skill at mediation, and then your third to last line, you wage a parallel barrage of meditation. Did you intentionally use those two words, or did you mean to use mediation instead of meditation towards the end?
No, I meant to use it the way, meditation.
Meditation, okay,
Yeah.
that works that way too. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It's a nice parallel word to use in the poem.
Should there be a hyphen between knee and jerk to hence to strengthen that?
Or is it one word? Knee jerk, is that one word or hyphenated word? Or, it might be one word. I think I read it as one word.
I don't know how the computer would argue with me that.
And that the parallel could be warlust, knee jerk, warlust.
Yeah, that ought to be hyphenated,
Yeah.
I would guess, for lust nations.
Yeah, I think that would.
Warlust.
When we're gonna.
Hyphenated?
Needed a hyphen. Well, and then full out war also should be full hyphen out, I think.
Yeah.
Good heavens.
Where is that there, full out word?
That's in the fourth line of the second page.
Okay.
As a poet, couldn't you do it any way you want to do it?
Don't start.
Whoa.
I didn't hear that, that's good.
He said, as a poet, you can do it any way you want to do it.
Rudolph, do you have something you're gonna read?
Well, I don't know. At this point, I'm so depressed.
Oh, God.
Nearly suicidal. I have something here written in Elder Futhark.
Oh, let's hear it.
Elder.
Runes.
Runes.
For Sven. Old Nordic, 150 AD.
I mean, the ruination of us all.
No, I just threw it because he told me his name was Sven, and I thought I would throw that in because I did a Viking thing recently, and set to memory the Elder Futhark. Let me see, I'm going to randomly select something here. Randomly selected.
Have you got any rabbits in there or anything?
It's got $12 in it.
Randomly selected.
Oh, all typed up and,
Hey, ready to go.
yeah.
No peeking. This is a fun thing. I hope it's a happy one. I like smile things that are sort of meaningless, but maybe this does. A dry place. Caught in the woods by a summer storm. A tumbled down shack near the sunken track of a long forgotten lane. I scrambled to where the roof still stood, protected from the rain, beneath a mud dauber's nest and a barn owl's rest, where a miner's bier had lain. In a child's scrawl upon the wall, I read as the sun peeked through, Pappy killed in a mine today. 1932. Oh, I'm so touched by my own eloquence. Yes, Pappy killed in the mine today, 1932. I was wandering around the woods up in Hocking County, and most of these things occurred, and those which didn't occur, I just simply invented, you know.
That's what you
Between
Of
that
course,
person.
you must.
I thought you said
How's
you
you
wanted
gonna
a
cheer us
happy
up?
poem.
Well, I thought it was, but I kind of teared up near the end
Well-
when I was thinking of that little child there, and
I think so.
sort of. God, I should have taken those meds this morning.
It's not too late.